Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, Prime Cabinet Secretary, Chair of the Council of Governors, Governors Present, Cabinet Secretaries, Principal Secretaries, and all protocols observed. The Ministry of Public Service is cognizant that the issue of reducing the wage bill from the current 46% of our revenue to that 5%, it is not a nice to have, it's a must to have. It is not an option, it's an imperative. And in this regard, the ministry is also cognizant of the fact that this is not the only issue that we have to deal with to reduce our recurrent expenditure, which continues to frustrate our ambitions. As we open our balance sheet every year, we open with an irrevocable commitment to fund several programs, to fund our free primary program, to fund our free secondary program, to fund our fertilizer subsidy program, to fund our social protection, to fund our counties, to fund our NGCDF. I don't know why anybody would want to be the president of this country. Because even before we open the year, we are opening with so many commitments which are irrevocable and which are non-discretionary. So to add to this issue of the wage bill shows that we really are already operating within a very constrained fiscal space, and so therefore we must do. And in this regard, my ministry commits on behalf of national government to do 4 things. 1, I will be shortly moving to cabinet to seek cabinet approval that all establishment, all staff establishment as approved, subject to cabinet approval, will remain suspended until review of the same is done, so that we can ask ourselves whether those establishments make sense or not. Secondly, my ministry is going to spearhead a government-wide program of looking at our processes, reviewing our processes, asking ourselves which processes are not making sense, asking ourselves which processes can be done using digitization, so that as we review our establishment, that we are able to have a public service that is fit for purpose. That, Your Excellency, as has been mentioned in the commitment, is to ensure that by December 2024, we migrate everybody from the president to the smallest person, to the driver within public service, to a system of performance management, and that one we will implement. Finally, Your Excellency, is on the issue of training. All public servants must be trained. To have public servants who are not trained is like taking someone from the streets, giving them a gun, recruiting them into the police service without taking them to Kikanjo and expecting them to perform. Everyone must be trained so that we can all act in a consistent, coherent manner so as to build our value system within the public service. Thank you, Excellency.
It's to you, CS. There's been a lot of talk about activity versus input, output and outcomes. As the custodian of public service measurement in this government, what is your take on Kenya's model of performance contracting and performance management? Are we measuring the right things?
Thank you, Angoi. I look at it from 2 fronts. One, performance management is much more encompassing than performance contracting. Performance contracting is just one of the measures that is supposed to contribute to performance management, and it's much broader than that. So the conversation that we are having within government is how can we be able to broaden the performance management framework so that it focuses more on productivity, that it measures outcomes and results as opposed to events and processes, which is the current. So that is currently undergoing some review and transformation, and we look forward to the beginning of the new fiscal year to be able to have a new regime that is, 1, much broader, and 2, that is really focused on outcomes. And performance contracting and performance management tools are supposed to answer to the needs of a particular administration. So what we're also doing is asking ourselves, how can our current performance management framework be a tool for this administration to achieve the commitments that we made to our people. Ultimately, we have to do that because the issue of productivity is key. And also, as the chair has said, on the issue of generational equity, that do we want to, as a current generation, to leave all the obligations and all these problems to future generations? I'm going to let me tell you that these fiscal issues, because this ultimately fiscal issue, is actually, it is hiding some real good progress that we are making on other fronts. For example, when we make progress on our exchange rate, when we control our inflation, when we have our GDP growing this year expected at 5.6%, and then that is wiped out by all these fiscal issues that come with recurrent expenditure. And finally, we want to broaden this discussion and ask ourselves, is this just an economic issue? No, for me, it is a moral issue, it's an ethical issue. How can we have 1 million people who are the public servants consuming 41% of our revenues and leaving the other 53 million people to consume 59%? In fact, I would question the other 53 million people. Why are they so patient with us? Because there's a moral issue and there's an ethical issue of how can we have just 1 million people living on the back of another 53 million people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, CS. Wow. Before I go to Prime Cabinet Secretary, let me ask CS Moses Kuria. Your ministry is the custodian of the IPPD. How can we ensure that all public sector institutions migrate to a unified payroll system to mitigate wastage, double pay, ghost workers, manual pay, fake pay, etc., etc.? Thank you.
Thank you, Wangui. On the issue of cleanup of our payroll, we had given ourselves 12 months to ensure that everybody migrates. I'm under instructions that has to be completed by December 2024. That everybody at all levels of government must be under the IPPD system. And we are also going to work with the Council of Governors to ensure that even casual workers, even somebody on 1-day contract is on some system one way or the other. Even the issue of casual workers is not reason enough for someone to be outside a payroll system. Further, you are aware of what we are doing on our health space, that we are migrating everybody, all Kenyans, into what we are calling the digital health. And as part of that digital health migration, we have to take data of all Kenyans. And that data will start with public servants. So my ministry is working with the Ministry of Health to ensure that as we migrate to the new social health scheme, and we take the details of workers, of Kenyans, starting with public workers, that will also be an exercise for census. So, as I said before, on the issue of ghost workers, because the people from our religious space have failed to fully exercise ghost, we are going to use technology to ensure that this issue of ghost workers disappear. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
In 10 years, it just means it's possible. It's not difficult. I think it's the issue of being firm and being courageous and not thinking about yourself, but thinking about the people who we are serving. I think John Maxwell is the one who said it us. We have a few more minutes, and what I wanted to do is to just call Bwana Chepkwon. He had promised that he would like to have just a few questions being asked, or comments that he would like to. As I take it back, we will allow him to run the show. I'm not sure we will come back here again as the steering com, or as the steer com that has organized this conference, because as we leave, we want to go and meet our guests. But on my own behalf, the experience you have is invaluable, where we can borrow from. I know we have read a lot about leadership. Transformative leadership needs to be firm and courageous. Yesterday we had a testimony.
Big CEOs in this auditorium will agree with me that we are implementers of policy. And Emeritus has said,
public servants. So I'm very happy that this conference is happening and that I'm here to point out the fact that we've been talking for a long time about sorting out this matter of reaching the world standard of
if we work together. Of course, I've worked quite a while in government, many years as a young economist to date, and the only sad thing I see, we discuss the same things we discussed when I joined government in the 80s. It's the same thing. I think what lacks is that oomph, that action, that inertia, that selflessness that can be able to help us move forward. But we are very grateful, and thank you very much for honoring us. So allow me now to call Gachagua to come and pick any
individual, one comment. It would be appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
What is not yet full in this file are the comments. And so I stand guided by that direction, that I will be taking comments and looking at the numbers that are in the file already. It leaves me with 15 to make the 35. Columns of the auditorium, it would be sufficient. So I would open the floor then for anyone who has comments with no particular order, or I will start from the first to my right. All right, I see one hand. Who else? Let me see those who have comments kindly.
SRC is a landmark. Yet again, we have had several, because this is where the Salaries and Remuneration Commission was born, was said yesterday. This is a time when courageous decisions must be taken. This is a time when sacrifices must be made by those of us who are earning huge salaries, huge allowances,